turning back.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Strive Tribe podcast. Today, we actually got a special guest with us, Trevor Cowley. I wanted to bring him on today because he's actually one of my mentors and the owners of Real Business Owners account and a serial entrepreneur. But I wanted to bring him on today because his connection with fitness and mindset is huge, and it's an inspiration. And I mean, it's one of the main reasons I started following them, a few years ago. So with saying that, we're going to kind of go into his mindset, his fitness, and his business journey and how they all kind of tie in together. Trev, do you want to kind of give a little background on like just your business, like what you're doing on a day-to-day, just in business first?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me, bro. It's always cool to get that DM where somebody, believes that the way that you live your life is, valuable just in general by sharing your principles, your values, your non-negotiables, just literally your day-to-day life, right? And so, look, man, fitness is the staple of my life. Like, I put that in such high regard. Why? Because you're never going to really operate better than how you feel, right? Like when we feel like crap, we operate like crap. We're dragging ourselves to accomplish things, right? And so for me, I yo-yoed with fitness for a little bit when I was a little bit younger, right? It's not like I, came out of high school and said, I'm committed to fitness and I'm going to do 2-a-days and I'm this, that. Like fitness is a journey just by itself, right? Like We start with this and then we mess around and then we fall off and then we recommit, and then eventually it just becomes part of a lifestyle because you've started and fell off so many different times that it's just like, man, I know how I feel when I show up and I show up that way in the world with health and fitness being kind of a top of mind thing. So I yo-yoed. I'd be the 3 days a week, the 5 days a week, and then not show up for a week, right? Let life get in the way, business get in the way, family get in the, whatever it is, right? It got to the point where, several years ago, I made more money than I had ever made. And I wasn't operating at the way that I know that I could with my fitness, with my health. And I was at a very low spot. So when I was operating my life in a way that put the way that I feel as a priority, but I didn't have as much money, I felt better.
Right.
And when I didn't put my health as the priority and I put money as the priority, I got the money and I didn't feel that good in my body, in my mind, right? And so there's nothing more valuable than the way that you feel in your body and mind. This is the vessel that we're stuck with forever. For the rest of our life, we might as well figure out how to game it, how we can utilize it to our advantage and feel good in it and move our body in a way that releases endorphins and dopamine to where we can basically operate it as it's designed to be operated, right? It's not designed to be idle and to be sitting on a couch or be like, we've just evolved, I guess, unevolved to the point to where now we're just really not utilizing our body and minds in a way that would make us feel good. We don't even deserve to feel good. What makes you think that if you're not honoring something as it's designed to be honored, that you have the right to even feel a certain way? Like we want the result, like, man, that person, they look vibrant. They look like they're energetic. They look like that they're healthy. They look like we envy these people, but yet we don't peel the curtain back and look at their schedule and how much they prioritize how they feel, right? And so after hitting a very, very low spot, not financially, I hit a peak financially, but hitting a low spot, realizing, okay, it's not all about money when at one point I thought it was, and I wanted to exercise in order for the mental discipline that would ultimately help me make more money. That was kind of the goal of it. Yes, I did feel good, but I was just trying to kind of put all the pieces together to give me the highest probability of success in business, in life, right?
Right.
And so once that moment happened, I recommitted to my fitness at a whole nother level.
Do you think that looking back, I mean, because obviously, you're a serial entrepreneur, like you have, multiple things going on nowadays, do you think that if you were looking back and had a second go at it, that you would have implemented like your fitness along the journey of getting to where you are now?
Oh yeah. Like why wouldn't we want to enjoy the journey as a whole, right? Like when
Right.
we get to that spot financially wherever we're trying to go, don't you want that version of you to be a healthier version, not just financially, but also physically healthier, right? Like how much better would that money be if you're in this vessel that's operating at its peak, right? Like how many people do you see that operate at their financial peak, but their health went to the wayside, right? And like they're trying to buy their way out of the emotion of living in their body by buying the endorphins or the dopamine rather than moving their body in a way that would give them that naturally, right?
Right.
And so like they're avoiding a problem through, the financial means that they have, when in reality, we have everything that we ever need within us. And fitness is the bridge between who you are today and finding out who you can be and who you are today and really what you're truly about, because you utilize the physical body to get to the brain, right?
Right.
Like we move it to the point to where we feel like we can't go anymore. And then we continue to go, and then we bridge the gap of where we are versus who we can ultimately become by creating these situations or these circumstances that force us to push through. And the only way that I really know how to do that and to get to the mind is through your physical body and by exerting yourself and accomplishing things physically that give you the confidence that you get to take into other areas of your life.
Right. And I mean, that discipline that's connected to it, because it's tough. It's physically painful, it's mentally painful, and it's, could be emotionally, exhausting, with some of the workouts, especially with everything that's going on in your day. I actually did an episode a couple of weeks ago off of your topic, the throw another log on the fire. And that's a huge one. It's one of those things where it's easy to use your goals, even like business and stuff, as an excuse of why you can't work out. When in reality, like those key components of fitness, not the actual fitness itself, but like the discipline, the self-motivation, and those things translate into your business. But go into like your theory of like throwing another log on the fire, your thoughts on that.
Look, man, if we're not constantly putting new logs on the fire goes out,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
that's just a metaphor for life. If we're not constantly working, right? Like for me, I would rather not get a log every single time I need a log. In other words, I'm at a low spot, I'm getting cold and I need to go get a log and leave the warmth that I have to go into the cold to get a log and put another log on the fire, right?
Right.
Like how many times does somebody wait until they're, completely overweight before they want to get back into fitness, or they're financially broke before they recommit to, hey, it's not going to be like this anymore. Like, why do we wait to put ourselves out in the cold? Right. That's kind of the idea of putting other logs on the fire. For me, I want to go take as many logs as I possibly can and stack them up as quickly as possible so that I can create a warm fire for myself. All of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis are considered logs, right? And so for me, if let's say, for instance, I work out once a day, every single day, and that becomes easy for me, right? It's just kind of what I do. Like, what are you doing every single day to scratch the surface of your hard or your difficult? Right? Like put another log on the fire, find another version of yourself because it exists. I think we find low places and then we do the work necessary physically to get out of that low place. And then we stop putting another log on the fire.
Yeah.
Right? We lose that 50 pounds that we said that we were going to lose. And then we stop doing everything that made us lose the 50 pounds.
Right.
We stop putting the log on the fire, so to speak, right? Like showing up every single day is just putting another log on the fire. Like the consistency, and then you'll have a consistent burn, right? It's the times, the gaps in between showing up and not showing up that ultimately make our fires go out, right?
Right.
The burn go out. And then it's that much more difficult to get ourselves going again and create another fire and continue that process.
No, definitely. And it's one of those things where, I mean, your thing when we were talking in Mexico of, is this going to count as your workout? And you mentioned, you're like, no, this isn't part of my workout because I would normally do this. Like, for example, when you're talking about even at home, like if you're going to do yard work or do anything like that, it's like you would naturally do that anyways. So that doesn't count as like a log on your fire in the sense of like your fitness. It's what are you going to do above and beyond? What are you going to do to like push your limit of what you naturally would do to grow? Because I mean, the way I tell clients and stuff like that, it's like your body will go 10 times farther than your mind will let it. You know, your internal like mind is going to be telling you to stop because it's painful. But you pushing through that pain, that's where growth truly actually starts to happen. It's not the, oh, if I could do 100 push-ups, I do 100 push-ups. All right, well, then start trying to go for 110 and, do those little extra things because that's where true growth comes from.
Yeah, I mean, the world will invite you to average or mediocre, right? In other words, you're going to have people say, oh, well, this can count for that or this, like, or you don't got to do that, da, 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 right? Like, it doesn't matter what they say. It matters what you say. Right. And if the homies want to go out and they want to go play, soccer or whatever, right? Like if I would have done that anyways, because that was fun to me, then I'm not going to count that because it doesn't increase my level of mental discipline or fortitude because I was going to do it anyways. Like I've worked out in my yard, I've got some acres and I've been out there for 6 to 7 hours in a day working in the hot sun, and I still will get my morning workout and my evening workout, even though I could justify, hey, I've been outside for 6 hours doing all my back hurts. I've been shoveling, but I had to do that anyways because that's my yard. Right. So I'm not taking time away from the things that I want to do or need to do in order to get my workout done. And if that's not the case, then I'm not going to do it. Like it's 11 a.m. here in Utah. I've already got both my workouts done this morning because that's the way that my schedule made it line up. I prefer to start one and end one with the day, right? So when I got to that low spot, I had to ask myself, right? I was talking about hitting a low spot. I made money financially. I finally got alone with me and said, what makes you feel best? And I would reflect back at the times where I felt best, the most confident, the most disciplined, just great in my body and mind, where things just felt like that they were happening, right? And it was when I was moving my body 2 times a day, every single day. It was when I was hydrating. It was when I was reading. I was growing mentally, physically, emotionally, because this is an emotional game. Like it takes one day off emotions to say, I'm not going to show up today.
Right.
Like, dude, there's a million decisions because there's, a decision every second of every day that you can deter off of the path that you said that you were going to go down. Right. And so any moment you can just veer based upon emotion, right? Like you grow physically, you grow mentally and emotionally when you stay committed. Right? Like that's just part of it. And people don't really understand that side of it because most people haven't stayed committed long enough to understand what it looks like on the other side of that. And so when I said I'm going to do 2-a-days every single day, it didn't start with 1,000 days, right? Like I'm committed to doing 2-a-days every single day for 1,000 days straight. I end September 27th, 2024. Right. And so I've got a ways out. I'm like day, 520 something. I don't count anymore because I'm living in the process, not living for the countdown. Right. I'm living to mark off that I lost another 2 pounds. I'm living in the process that will by default help me lose 2 pounds. Right. Like that's the difference of individuals that truly get into shape and stay healthy for a long time versus the ones that are like, countdown to Christmas, so to speak, right? Like I'm down 20 pounds. I got 5 more pounds to go. Like, who cares? Are you showing up every day and doing what you need to do in order to honor your body and mind in order to feel good in it? And so when I reflected back and I said, well, I feel best when I move my body and I'm reading information that's nutritious to my mind, right? Self-improvement type stuff and hydrating well. I was like, really, all I'm doing is honoring the human design. You put good in and then good comes out of it, right? In other words, I feel good as long as I act good, right? And so for me, doing 2-a-days is less hard than living with the emotion of not feeling good in my body and mind. I would rather, have the stress of having to get my workouts in rather than having a dull stress for the full 24 hours a day because I just don't like the way I look, the way I feel. And I'm not operating in a way that I know that I can operate, which puts me obviously at a mental low because deep down I know I'm not doing the things that I know that I could do, which continues to drive you lower, lower, lower. When you avoid it, it just is that much more painful. So the pain of, doing 2-a-days every single day, reading 10 pages like that's just who I am now. And that's the process that I live in and I love because it makes me feel good. Now, do I have difficult days? I'm human just like anybody else. Like people like to say, oh, you this, you that, they, but you don't get it. My schedule, my kids, everybody has an excuse not to show up in the way that they know that they can show up. The question is, do you prioritize it?
And that's the thing too, is like, I mean, I've gotten that because, being a trainer for, over a decade, they're like, well, it's easy for you to, work out and say, get a workout because you're at the gym. I was like, yeah, but I've been in the gym for, 12 hours or 16 hours some days when I had my personal training company. And it's like, would you want to work for 16 hours and stay another hour, 2 hours at the place that you just worked for 16 hours? It's like, that's the easiest thing for me to leave. But I mean, what's huge for you too is like, and even for me, like we're both dads, we're both, entrepreneurs, like, and your schedule can get chaotic. But the main thing that you said in that too was like, you planned your 2-a-day this morning because that's just how your day laid out, and that's where I think a lot of people mess up is they're not prioritizing scheduling out their day. They're living it on the fly. All of a sudden it hits 9, 10 p.m. at night and they're like, oh man, I'm too tired. It's like, well, I guarantee there was 30 minutes to an hour throughout your day, a couple points you could have worked out.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'll basically validate what you just stated. I just got back from a trip to Antigua, right? And there was a 19-hour day of travel, right? Between driving to an airport.
Where is that?
It's south of Florida. It's kind of by Jamaica. It's like tropical, all that cool stuff, right? So it was a 19-hour day of travel. So I'm like, okay, I got to get up early or stay late or whatever. Look at the flights and kind of create my schedule, right? How, like, literally my wife knows, right? So I'm like, I'm down to go as long as it just doesn't mess up my 1,000 2-a-days and my reading every day, right? Like that's a high priority for me because I'm over 50% there. And I want to prove to me that I can do it, because if you told me 2 years ago or 3 years ago, hey, dude, you'll do 1,000 2-a-days in a row, I would have been like, dude, that's ridiculous. So I'm trying to impress even myself, right? Like, and if you can impress yourself, your confidence has to increase. Like, holy shit, I can't believe I did that, right? I'm looking at our flight. I'm like, okay, we're taking a red eye on the way there. I'm like, okay, I'll have to exercise in the airport because we have a 3-hour layover, right? Like, so for me, exercising, it's not like exerting myself, exhausting it, doing, 500 burpees every workout, right? Like some workouts are riding a bike, some workouts are walking, some are running, 20 miles at a time, some are lifting weights, right? So as long as I'm actively honoring my body and moving the vessel, that's really what's important. So yeah, I just went on one of them, a 45-minute walk through the airport. Found stairs, went up and down stairs. And I mean, I look kind of like a crazy guy pacing back and forth for 45 minutes. But like, what would most people do if they had a 3-hour layover? They're on their way to vacation. Like, why would they justify, getting uncomfortable when they're already uncomfortable in a state of traveling? Nobody likes airports and airplanes and this and that. Like, you just want to relax. And so like, sit down, wait for your flight, blah, blah, blah. Like, I had to schedule it out based upon what I saw the day look like and the gaps in between connecting to Antigua in order to make sure that I was honoring what I said I would do. And so if it's important enough to you, you'll figure out a way to get it done. If it's not important enough to you, you'll figure out an excuse to justify why you are where you are, with your health, so that you don't feel so bad. Because if you told yourself the truth every day, I'm not willing to do what it takes, I'm being lazy, I'm making excuses, knowing that you could show up, you would be in a very, very, very low spot. So we tell ourselves sweet little lies in order to not feel that deep of pain. That's basically just a way to justify not showing up and not feeling bad about it, right? Like we can all find those reasons, but we can also find the reasons to show up for ourselves. I'm a big, big believer that you have the ability to make a ripple effect in this world. And what you do with your life does matter, right? There are people watching, whether it's your children, whether it's your parents, whether it's friends, coworkers. You'd be surprised with, as often as I run now, how many people around me in my ecosystem are also wearing running shoes and starting to run, right? Like I didn't do that for them, but like I noticed, like when you really commit to something, you inspire other people to also commit. And if everybody did that, the world would be a better place, because when you feel better, you have better thoughts. When you have better thoughts, you have better actions, right? Like one good thing leads to another. Like if I go for that run that day, I'm more likely going to eat healthy because I want to have that run be meaningful and not just waste it with a burger and fries or a pizza or ice cream, right? And if I go for the run and I'm eating healthier, then I might be sleeping better in this body. Now, if I'm sleeping, then I might want to repeat that process, right? So like one win leads to another. And I just think that, people minimize how important it is to just get that first win. You don't got to go from not exercising to 2-a-days every single day for 1,000 days, because the journey to get to where I am to make that type of commitment was a long journey of fitness and, experimenting with my body and mind by moving it, whether it's riding bikes, whether it's running. Like, I think it's super important for people to try a bunch of different ways to get fit. That's what's beautiful about what you guys do. You guys do a bunch of the crazy stuff, not just the typical moving weights up and down. Like you're incorporating a lot of cool muscles and making it difficult, making it challenging, which is where people will see the most benefit.
No, and I think that there's that saying, a man that values the destination versus the man that values the walk will walk farther. It's one of those things where you're an inspiration to more people than I guarantee that you even realize, because you've learned how to value the journey, and actually appreciate the journey versus just trying to focus on that, like you said, checking off the days till you get to 1,000. And I think that people do use excuses to their own benefit of why they're not going to be able to work out, when in reality, it's like, you being a dad, you being a business owner, like there is no excuse for someone not to do it. Like if you can do it, I can do it, the next person can do it. You just got to prioritize what are you looking to do. You got to plan out how you're going to do it. It doesn't always have to be, like you said, 100 burpees or 500 burpees. It could just be the general, go outside for a walk. Like, were you going to do that anyways? No, then okay, that can be a workout. And next time you can switch it up a little bit. But with how busy your schedule gets, how do you and your family's like relationship, like how is that all like intertwined? Like, do they understand, that you're gone X amount of time, or do you dedicate certain hours to hanging out with them?
I wake up earlier than they, you know what I mean? Like, even if like they got out for summer, but by the time I got my run in this morning and ran 5 miles, when I woke up, I came back. I mean, everyone's still asleep. Right. So I, again, try to work around that. I used to work out in the evenings, and my wife was like, well, you come home from work and then you go change and then you go to the gym, this, that, the other. And so she's like by the time you get home, it's 8 o'clock and the kids are going to bed by 9:30. So I started to get up earlier and do morning workouts so that I could be home at night. That was prior to the 2-a-days. Right. And so look, now that I've seen some success and we have, people in place to help operate the businesses, my schedule has freed up a little bit. But like, for instance, I was done with my second workout and at the office by 9:30 today. Right. And so I would have gone to the office anyways by 9 o'clock regardless. So I'm like trying to figure out where to take an inch here and like move things around. So guess what? Tonight when I get home, my kids are out of school. It's summertime, right? I'm going to get home and they have that whole evening with me. Right. Because I'm front loading it. Right. Now, every so often I'm not able to, front load it, back load it, this, that, the other. I invite my kids to run with me or to go for a walk with me or to ride the bike with me. Like, this is the example that I want to set, is that fitness and health is super important. Watch, your dad is going to operate in a way that displays how important it is to him. These are non-negotiables. Like, we just don't negotiate with what we're trying to do in terms of living in a healthy body. So I ran, 37 miles on my 37th birthday, 38 miles on my 38th birthday. My son came out with me on my 38th birthday, rode in the RV that was following. He was asleep, obviously, because we run through the middle of the night, starting at midnight until about 8 or 9 in the morning. And so he's asleep, but he wanted to come run the last few miles with me. Right.
Cool.
So he woke up, it's like 6, 7 in the morning. So he got to sleep all night, and he got out of the RV and he ran the last like 3 or 4 miles with me.
That's cool.
He's visually seeing me push myself. Right. And after that day, he says, Dad, I want to run 7 miles on my 7th birthday.
That's dope.
And I said, cool. Well, let's do it. And my birthday's in July. So he did this with me in July. In October 26th is his birthday. He turned 7. We went out. We ran 7 miles on his 7th birthday. He's a 7-year-old kid. I did not tell him to come up with this idea. The environments that you put yourself in matter so much and will shape who you become, right? When you're around people that value health and value fitness, that is a positive environment that you want to put yourself in. Outside of the physical benefits you get, the mental benefits of being around uplifting, positive people that are moving their body, like that's a big deal. And people aren't putting enough weight on how important it is to be surrounded by those types of people, even for an hour each day or 30 minutes each day, like getting that pick me up. After my 7-year-old did that, my 13-year-old daughter says, Dad, I want to run 13 miles on my 13th birthday, which was a month later. I said, cool, let's do it. And we ran 13 miles on her 13th birthday. She broke down, was crying at mile 9. She didn't think that she could go any further. And I turned to her as she's kind of crying and tearing up. She's looking at how much longer we have to go. We have another 4 miles. How am I going to do this? And I said, you committed to this knowing that it wasn't going to be easy. We just got the easy part out of the way. Now here's where it gets hard. You knew coming into this that you were trying to challenge the current version of yourself. We did what the current version of you could do easily. Now it's time to create the new version of you and create a new limit of what's possible for you. I said, let's just run to that tree. So we ran to that tree and we walked a little bit. I said, let's just run to that car. We ran to the car. We walked. Let's just run to that hill. So I taught her to eat the elephant one bite at a time. Don't look at what the totality that you got left. I have 100 pounds to lose. This is impossible. It's this, it's that. No, like lose the first 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Then the next, and then like eat it one bite at a time. Next thing you know, we're at the finish line. We're in my truck. We're driving home and she's like crying, laughing, smiling, like she accomplished something that she didn't think that she was going to accomplish based upon the emotion that she was feeling at mile 9. That just shows you that we can't trust emotions.
Yep.
Logically, is showing up every single day the right thing for your body? Is it the right thing for your mind? The answer is yes, if we remove all emotion off of the table. It's not that hard to understand. Ask 100 people what it takes to be healthy or fit. All of them know. It's in the execution that matters. Why are we at an all-time high with obesity? Because people aren't executing. They're relying too much on their emotions and not enough on their logic.
Right.
So because she was willing to endure pain, she was able to be rewarded with the feeling of a sense of accomplishment. And like people don't know what that feels like anymore. We just live through like, we're not pushing ourselves or accomplishing things that would even surprise ourselves. And so I spend time with my kids, but I spend it in a healthy way to where they see me doing activities. Like in our orchard, I throw my son baseballs. We hit baseballs. We throw the baseball. Like, dude, we do a lot of stuff together. But I will tell you this, and this is the key to it all. This will bring everything full circle. You can't exercise, have good relationships, be a great husband or wife, and operate businesses and do all of these things and do all the things that the normal or average person does. So you have to figure out what you're willing to give up so that you have the ability to gain something new, right? I don't watch television Like I used to be a big sit around on Sunday, watch football, Saturday, did it. It's like ESPN's going all the time on the screen, just a normal, typical dude. And I'm not talking down about it unless you feel bad about yourself and you're still just doing the same things that made you feel that way. I
Right.
got to a spot where I was at a low point and had to ask myself a question and I had to give myself an honest answer. Right. I wanted to move my body twice a day. So that required me to give something up. The old version of me, right, that would love to sit around on a Saturday or a Sunday, justify, eating chips and watching a game, and I deserve it because I've had a tough week. You can't have all the great things and all the crappy things at the same time.
Right.
Right. So how do I have time to run the business and do 2-a-days and hang out with my kids? Because I got the crap out of the way. That's all I do. That's all I do. I don't have, time where I just lollygag, so to speak, right? Like it just doesn't exist. Like I'm at home, I'm at the office, or I'm exercising. Those are the three places that you'll find me, period. Like this trip that I just got back from was like the last time me and my wife did, it was like 5 years ago. And she said, "Did you like it?" And I said, "The first day or two was cool, whatever." But I was itching to get back into my routine and get back into my processes. Now, I didn't skip while I was there, but everything was unfamiliar. It was all you can eat food, like I felt lethargic. I didn't like it. I don't like sitting around just gorging and barely moving my body. Even moving my body twice a day didn't feel good when I was drowning it with negative stuff like overeating and just being lazy and laying around at a pool. Like it's cool for a day or two, but let's get to work. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, do you think that vacation and stuff was, well, one, was the vacation your idea or your wife's idea?
Hers. Yeah, I got to concede somewhere.
No, 100%. And that's what I was kind of touching on too, is like everyone has their things that make them happy, and at the same time, being in a relationship, whether you're married or you're dating someone, it's like you have to have a little bit of balance to create that healthy relationship. But it doesn't necessarily mean you need to give up on who you are and always, do what they want. Like you said, you hadn't been on a vacation for 5 years, because you put delayed gratification of where you needed to get. But you also had that team, your wife, that was supporting you in all those things and understood where you're at. So it's one of those things where, you still do things that she wants to do, even though it's not what you want to do. You adapt around it and know that you're doing it because it's going to make her happy as well. And then you get back to it when you get back. There's not an excuse of like, oh, I need a day to rest when I come back. It's like, look, suck it up, like push your limit, do what you need to do. The biggest thing is like even with myself, when people ask, they're like, how do you do like with being a dad, or right before I was about to be a dad, they're like, you're not going to be able to run this business. I was like, just watch. Like it's not, you just do the things you need to do. It's not that hard. Do you need to get it done?
They have cognitive bias because they're taking their life and saying, well, you can't do that and that based upon the way that they live. They have too many distractions. They have too much they want to go out on the weekends. They want to I don't hang out. I don't kick it. Yeah. Like that doesn't fill my cup. Like right. I told my daughter flat out, like we were driving home one day and I said, I'm pushing myself because I do want to inspire other people. Right. I do want other people to know that it's possible for them too. And secondly, I mean, I saw guys, David Goggins, these type of like the top guys out there. I'm like, why do they do this? It doesn't even make sense. Like an outsider looking in, they go to the extreme. And I said, well, if they keep showing up and they keep doing it, that means there's something on the other side of it that we just don't understand. Right. Or else they wouldn't keep doing it. Yeah. Right. There's something so euphoric and so great after such misery that they continue to show up and they're willing to go through that misery in order to feel that feeling.
100%.
And so I was like, I'm going to put myself to the test. I'm going to start running 20 miles, 30 miles. Like, I want to see what's on the other side of this. And so I said, that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But at the exact same time, this is what I was talking to my daughter about. If I have to sacrifice my life in order to enhance other people's lives, then I'll do it.
Right.
Then I'll do it. And I don't really think that I'm having to sacrifice my life because I think I'm actually living my life. It's just other people might look at it like it's a sacrifice. When in reality, I think that they're sacrificing their entire life by not doing anything.
No,
right?
100%. I mean, like that's my final core value on my core values is to have an impact.
Yeah,
I'm the same exact way. And it's one of those things where you posting about it and being about it, you might only get X amount of likes. But if you post that same thing on your story, all of a sudden you'll see how many people are actually looking at it. They just aren't interacting with it. But
yeah.
I think people are only posting and doing that for the likes and for the clout and stuff like that. When in reality, you don't know whose day you could be affecting by just being open or being how you're always about mindset and stuff like that on your social media. And it's one of those things where, I mean, that inspires that one person, and that sometimes that's all you do it for. But you have found what fills your cup, and your filling your cup fills other people's cup as well. And that's
Well,
just a
how I
huge thing.
look at it is if you figure out what fills up your cup, guess what? Your cup's only so big.
Yeah.
It has to overflow. And guess what?
Yep.
If there's other cups underneath your cup,
Exactly.
and then there's a waterfall cascade effect, right?
Yep.
Cup, boom, 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 boom. How far can that ripple effect really go? And that really makes me, like think sometimes. Like, for instance, Brett Knott, that's in our mastermind group.
Yeah.
He started running, right? Lost like 50, 60 pounds, ran 50 miles, like never really ran. But I saw somebody that works with him starting to run.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so he was around me and got the idea of running and started running. And then because somebody was around him, they got the idea of running. So they started running.
Right.
Right. And like, who is around him that sees him running that's going to get an idea maybe they should start running? Like that, like how far can I connect it out in terms of the ripple effect? And like, some people don't believe in themselves enough and, don't think that they're worthy enough to really put in time, effort, energy into themselves. And the only reason why they feel that way is because they don't put time, energy, and effort into themselves. And when you start doing that, your worth factor goes up and you want to continue to contribute to yourself so that you could show up better in the world.
No, 100%. I mean, and just like how you've, inspired other people to run, like one of the things that you've inspired me to, like since I followed you guys, was to show more of like my mindset stuff. Like, cause I mean, that's always been a huge like piece of me. And like I deal with my clients, but like I haven't been bigger on social media or like try to post more on social media until recent, so that's one of those things that your cup has overflowed into mine in the sense of just, speaking about mindset and those motivational things. Cause it's huge and it does a lot for people that, you don't always see. What is I always kind of do this with the interview towards the end is what is the best advice or best piece of knowledge that someone has given you? And then also what's the worst?
Health-wise or
health, fitness, business, anything in life?
I would say the best piece of advice that I've received is that it feels the same to everybody. It's pain, suffering, waking up early, all of that feels the same to everybody.
That's interesting.
Like
it's true.
It's true. Like I wake up tired. My brain turned on me this morning. I didn't want to go for the run. And literally I had to fight it. But somebody on the outside might be looking like, man, this guy's always motivated.
Yeah.
It feels the same to everybody.
No, that's true. I've said the same thing to clients. That's put a brilliant way. Yeah.
And so like that piece of advice was like, well, they've got this result that I want because they were willing to go through what I'm currently going through. This is not unique to me. So if I go through it, then it rewards me later. I become deserving because I'm going through this. Right. And so if they did it and they got X result, like I was sitting at a conference in Texas, David Goggins was coming to speak or whatever. And I turned to my buddy and I said, let's go for a run. We could sit here in these chairs and talk and listen to somebody talk about getting after it, or we can go get after it.
Right.
Like we can go live what he's going to come preach, or we could just sit in these chairs and try to get a dopamine hit off of this guy's accomplishment. Wow. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna. But if we can get out of the seats and go for a run and actually miss that, we might be on to something.
Right.
Right. And my buddy's like, let's do it. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, these seats are packed all because this guy decided to not listen to his emotions, because we all go through it. Right. And all they're there for is to listen to this guy that showed up every single day and worked hard. That's it. There's nothing else that separates him from anybody else. He showed up every day, which is consistency, and he worked hard every day, pushed himself to the limit. And so you're telling me if I show up every day with consistency and I work hard and push myself to the limit, that maybe one day I have a stadium full of people just literally wanting to hear what I have to say just because I'm consistent and work hard?
Yeah.
That's how easy it is over an extended period of time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And that's where people fall off because their emotions get the best of them because they think that he's built different when in reality, he built himself different, right? Like it just is what it is. I don't know if it would be necessarily advice, but I would say, the worst piece of information that I believe to be true is that schooling had a direct effect on your ability to be successful, right? So it's more of a belief that was pushed on me than a direct piece of advice by one individual, right? Because I didn't do well in school, I didn't feel, again, worthy, that I'm never going to be successful with some of the thoughts that I had. Like, all of these people are smart. They're different than me. They did it. Again, all of these things that we want to make up in our mind when we have lack of result. They're different. They're this, that I'm dumb. I'm that. Like, I would put labels on myself so that I didn't feel bad not putting in real effort, when it came to school. But I didn't really do well in school. And I just want people to understand the only reason why I bring that up is because when you apply your mind to something, anything is possible. Physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally. Like, if you really apply yourself into your relationship will flourish. If you apply yourself in your fitness, it will flourish. It's impossible not to. Like, you need to invest time, energy, money, effort into the areas that we deem or see important in our life. Family, our health. Like, if you're not investing time, money, effort, like joining a gym, hiring a personal trainer, like things like this, because it's so important, then you're really putting yourself behind the eight ball and hoping, one day that you get lucky and strike it rich. And hopefully one day you wake up with 6-pack abs and one day, right? Quit justifying yourself out of your life and start creating the life that you want by figuring out what are your priorities and what type of time, energy, and effort are you willing to put towards those priorities in order to get the result that you say that you want.
Definitely. I mean, that's awesome. Hey, man, I just want to thank you so much for, taking time out of your crazy day and, hopping on this episode with us. I will see you next week. Yeah.
I'll see you next week, brother.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.